Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's live stream of Ask Nicole. This is the most expensive video that I've ever created. And as you see, I did not put that money into production. So stick around and find out what I spent the money on. Now I'm going to warn you, I've tried to make this video under 15 minutes. I practiced a little bit and there's just no way I can do it because there's a lot of stuff in it. So buckle up. If you're watching this somewhere that only allows 15-minute videos, this is going to be a two-parter. So let's get this party started. So again, my name's Nicole. I do this weekly live stream where I answer questions about marketing and tech as it relates to small business every Tuesday morning. So if you have a question or comment, feel free to leave a comment wherever you're watching this video or otherwise reach out. If you're looking to hear from me more often, hit like, subscribe, follow, whatever the button says wherever you're watching this. And if you're looking for something a little bit more bingeable, I recommend going on our YouTube channel because I made playlists there and that makes things easier. So let's talk about this week's topic at hand, which I'm calling Clash of the Social Media Ads. Now, a little bit of background. Basically what happens is as a marketing person, to me, ads are a tool in my tool belt. They're not the only thing I do, but they're definitely in the mix. And when I talked with clients or potential clients about ads, they have basically two main objectives, or objections, I should say. One is that they basically say something to this effect. Now, it could be a mixture of these things, but usually it is at least one of these things, which is that they have a very established business, but online, they don't really have much of an audience. Or they're a brand new business, still the same idea, right? They still don't have an audience, but it's kind of for a different reason. It's because they're new. Or they tell me that they have a very specific product. So that's like kind of one group of people. The other group of people I get feedback from are people with extremely local service-based businesses. Nicole, I have a spa in a town of 5,000 people. How are ads going to help me? So next week, I'm going to tackle the hyper-local service-based businesses. But this week, I'm going to tackle this particular kind of business, which is a brand new business with a very specific product, something that hits both of our criteria here. So you'll notice with the ad title, I'm talking about ads on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest. Now, I did have plans to do Google, but let me throw this out there because this is what happened to me. I hadn't used my Google Ads account, my business one, in a while, and I let my credit card expire. So I added a new credit card and turned on these ads. So I basically set up the ads on Friday and set them to run Saturday through Monday. I'm recording this video on Tuesday. So I wanted the ads to run for 2 days with the ad spend. And what happened was Google was in this learning phase and I could not figure out what was going on. And upon further reflection, if you haven't taken out a Google ad in a while and you turn your account back on, it's in this learning stage for like 3 days. So before it like actually turns on. So I actually don't have data from that. The other thing I will say though, from the Google ads was I felt like it was kind of not going to necessarily be a fair comparison with Google anyway. So this particular product, which I'll talk about in a second, is a computer product. And so this is the targeting in Google for sort of computer-based products. As you see, it's in the millions and the billions. Now, if we're looking at Pinterest or something like that, you'll see a little bit later, the targeted ad group was like 350,000. So not even in the same order of magnitude. So what I ended up doing in Google, again, it didn't run in time, but I just want to show you, if I wanted to make it a little bit more fair, what I was going to do is I was going to add some specific keywords to narrow down that $1 billion or that billion person audience to a slightly smaller number to make it kind of a fair comparison. So all that to say, didn't run on Google, but I totally meant to. Now, there are also more social media ads that I could have taken out and I did not test, which I'm acknowledging here. Every social media site has some kind of ad platform because that's the way they make a lot of their money. So if you are on a social media site and you want to take out ads, there's probably a way to do that. And you can probably even find a rep to help you do that if you don't want to contact me. So let's get into a little bit of background of what this company is. And so this is a SSF Parts, and they're an Anchor Space member. So I felt fine about using them as a guinea pig. Another benefit of Anchor Space membership, if you're a member of one of my co-working spaces or one of my clients. Obviously, if you're a client, though, you're not going to be brand new. So, so this is an Etsy only company, and the store opened 2 months ago on Etsy. It's gotten almost 150 sales in 2 months. So obviously it's got a good product, 5-star rating, like people really, good customer service, good product. You can't outmarket a bad product or bad customer service. So this is an Etsy only store. And because of that, and because it's relatively new, there's not really much of a marketing channel set up except for the owner made a Reddit account. So Reddit is a social media site, which we'll get into in a second, but there's no email list, there's no website, there's no social media pages. So basically when we're running ads, we're starting from scratch, which I thought was kind of a really fair thing to do here. So to run an ad that goes on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest, and it was going to be YouTube/Google, I wanted to make something creative-wise that was going to work on all three. So what I ended up doing is I made a 15-second video that was in 3 different formats. And what I mean by formats is a vertical format, a square format, and a rectangular format. So depending on kind of what, I guess, display if you're using Instagram stories versus an Instagram in-feed post, you would have something that was the correct size for that platform. Not only does it perform better, but like if you have like text written on it, it's not going to be teeny tiny and that sort of thing. So, I will say, it's a very specific kind of product in terms of for a specific kind of user. And so what I ended up doing was making a bit of a general 15-second ad. So I'll just play it for you here. It's 15 seconds. It's not that long, so hang in there. So the idea with that ad is you watch it and it's communicating that it's for this very specific kind of computer, an SSF desktop. It's communicating that it's on Etsy and that there are, other parts available for this kind of computer. So in my mind, the video, in addition to being relatively short and also being something we could serve on multiple platforms, it also communicated the marketing messages because I only wanted people who were interested in it to click through because that's what I was paying for. So it's important when you're doing anything like this to set up an experiment. And if you don't know me in real life, there's no way for you to know that I was a geology major in college. So not only can I tell you about asymmetric boudinage, but I can also tell you about setting up an experiment. So what we wanted to do, like I said, so this is on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. Okay, so 3 platforms that are very different. But the good news is there's a lot that we can control for and so that we can compare things fairly across the platforms. The first thing is I set a budget of $35. Now I know what you're thinking. That's kind of a weird amount of money. And I said in the last video, if you watched the last live stream, I was going to spend $25. But this is what happened. I went on Instagram to set up the ad set and they said my budget was too low. It had to be $31. And being the lightly detail-oriented person I am, like $31 seemed like a really weird number to me, so I just rounded it up to 35. So we set the same budget across the ad sets. Now, normally when you take out ads in Facebook and Business Manager, it will allow you to do Facebook and Instagram placements in the same ad set. I actually separated out the ad sets to show Facebook and Instagram separately, so you'll be able to see that. But I spent the same amount of money on Facebook, spent the same amount of money on Instagram, spent the same amount of money on Pinterest, or at least I set the budget to be the same. I also ran the ads during the same time period. As I was mentioning, I set up the ads on Friday, set them to go live on Saturday, logged in on Saturday morning to make sure they were running, logged in on Sunday to make sure they were running. That's when I ran into the Google issue that I was telling you about earlier. So running the ads during the same period of time also controls for anything that might be going on. Maybe there would be a news item, that talking about this particular computer part or something. So obviously, if there was a lot of talk about it in the news, it wouldn't be a really fair comparison to compare an ad set that ran earlier with one that was running during that time. So controlling ads to run during the same amount of time is another way that we can make sure that the results as we compare across the platforms are fair. I set the same goal for the ad set, which was traffic. Now, because I didn't have access to the Etsy store directly until, and I also just didn't want to get up in this client's, I didn't want to get up in his business, literally. I just set the goal to be traffic. I could have set it to be more of a conversion goal, and I could have done some other things. So if you're a marketing person watching this and thinking, I wouldn't have picked traffic as a goal, that's fine. The purposes of this experiment was I wanted to pick the same objective. And every platform has an objective when you take out an ad to get traffic to something. How different things track conversions can be pretty different. So I wanted something that, again, to make it so that we could compare things. I also use the same copy. Now, if you're going to replicate this experiment for yourself and you're going to use Google, what I recommend doing is writing your copy in Google AdWords first. It gives you the least amount of space to write things in. So I'll just show you what the sort of interface looks like. So as you see here, I mean, I'm sorry, that's kind of in light gray, but you'll see that the headline and the description have, so the headline has 90 characters, the description has 70, and you'll see that I can even write a custom call to action. I did make all the call to action buttons say learn more and not shop now. Again, that was just a judgment call. The thing is, you can test, obviously, in subsequent ad sets, whether shop now or learn more would do better. But the point is, we wanted to make them the same. So I made the same copy, including the copy on the button. So like I said, the goal is to keep as many things the same as possible if you're going to compare two completely different services. Now, one thing I will acknowledge is that the audience is only the same-ish. And here's the thing, obviously different kinds of people are on these different platforms. So if you are someone who's building your own custom PC, you might be more likely to be on certain websites in terms of social media than other websites, which I'm telling you this and you're like, yeah, that totally makes sense. But I just want to acknowledge that, some of these audiences are a lot smaller. So if we look, let's just take a quick look. Here's the Pinterest ad set as I was setting it up. And so I was targeting here, and you see the monthly active users or ads audience, which is in kind of the upper rightish corner, is 297,000 to 329,000. So that's relatively narrow. And Facebook's was a lot bigger because there's more people on Facebook. So just acknowledging that while we can do the same-ish in regards to audience, it can only be the same-ish. The other thing is that these different platforms will allow us to, I guess if we wanted to target more specific people, these different platforms offer different things. So for example, what I did not do for the Facebook ads was choose engaged shoppers. So engaged shoppers are people who have clicked the shop now button in the past week. And if we look at this, so this is the total size of that audience, 552 million people. So I'm guessing that's worldwide, either that or yeah, I think it's got to be worldwide. But point being is that if I wanted to further target people in these different, websites, I could have done that specifically with shopping behaviors in mind and things like that. But again, I wanted to not get too into the weeds with each one because it would have been harder to compare the results from them. So that is kind of my setup here in terms of the factors I can control for versus what I really couldn't, which is, the exact specific audience on each platform. So let's do, I guess, an overview of kind of what ended up going on. And what I ended up doing was making these into screenshots that were A, more attractive, and B, so that you didn't have to watch me stumble around. First of all, let's look at impressions. So impressions is how many views each ad set got. So again, I ran these for 2 days and spent $35. I did not put an upper limit on the cost per click. Something you can do with traffic on all of these is you can say, I want to do cost per click, but I only want to pay a maximum of $2 or something like that. I didn't do that here. I just said, pay whatever, because I wanted the ads to actually serve up. And if I would have limited it, they might not have served at all. So as you see here, and, remember last week I was talking about, Pinterest ads are so much cheaper. And the reason that I threw that out there is, and look here, you'll see that the Pinterest ads have a lot more views in terms of impressions. And if we look again, instead of just impressions, right? We want people to click on it because that's how they're going to go buy it. So, the clicks per impression. So this is what we would call sort of a conversion rate. So people who saw it versus people who clicked on it. And as you see, the conversion rate on Facebook is a lot better. And what we've seen is that the lift or whatever we call from Facebook ads does tend to be higher than other platforms. People are on Facebook and they're sort of a little bit more open to shopping. Now, is it that they're older and they have more disposable income? Is it that Instagram doesn't really have a lot of you can't click on a caption link and stuff like that. So it's a little bit less straightforward, maybe. But I am acknowledging that, Facebook, has a better click-through rate, but, Pinterest is, I guess, somewhat in line with Instagram. But the thing that we really care about is the overall sort of return on investment on our ads. So this is our cost per conversion. So how much did we pay for a click? And as you see, Pinterest and Facebook are sort of in line with each other. And Instagram is a lot more expensive. Now, as I sort of hypothesized, Instagram links are not as straightforward as they could be. On Instagram, you typically have to have above 10,000 followers for you to get that swipe up feature. So if you follow some influencers on Instagram and they're talking about something, the swipe up feature is, allows you to link to something that you're looking at on Instagram. You can also link to products in a product catalog on Instagram, but you can't put a link in a caption. And you need to have, like I said, a fair bit of followers to have that swipe up option. So Instagram has gotten rid of the swipe up option actually as of yesterday, and they're switching to a button format. Have yet to know whether that will, for those of us who have less than 10,000 followers, whether that will be something we can have, which would be great. I think ads would perform a lot better if you could make things a little bit more clickable and have people used to clicking on things on Instagram. So I talked a little bit about the kind of what was going on social media, what actually happened on the website, right? What actually happened on SSF Parts Etsy store. Let's take a look at some of the data. So here is the traffic, and this is traffic for the last 30 days. Now, I know it's tempting to look at that big spike and think, oh, that was the day that you ran the ads. And if I was a disingenuous person, I would tell you that it was, but it isn't. This is completely unrelated. The days that I ran the ads were like August 27th through 29th or something, which is the part that looks relatively in line with everything else. But something happened there. And upon looking at the traffic a little bit further, that spike was an Etsy thing. So I don't know if this product was featured somewhere on the Etsy homepage or something like that, but that seems to be potentially where the traffic was coming from. Also, it might have been coming from Reddit, although it was not mentioning that in the referring links in terms of traffic, that giant spike. So that was like, 1,800-ish people versus the typical day, which is a couple of hundred. So what I did is I just zoomed in on the last 7 days because I felt like that was a more fair comparison. Now, obviously, this August 31st, it's in the morning. So as you see, that drop is not like some bad performance. That's just the fact that it's 9:30 a.m. and we have a fair bit of the rest of the day to go to get more traffic. But you see here the days that I ran ads did go up slightly, but not a ton. And so what I wanted to do was say, okay, so if the ads, obviously we know what we paid for a click, what did it actually register on Etsy? So Facebook 30 clicks, Instagram 19, Pinterest 1. So it's funny that some of these ad platforms say that you've gotten more clicks, but it doesn't necessarily show on your end. So what I do recommend doing, if it's a website that you have a lot of control over, is making your own tracking links. So Google has a way that you can build your own tracking links, and you could build a link for each ad campaign, and then you'd be able to look in Google Analytics, pull that particular link and see what the traffic is on your end versus what, say, Facebook or Instagram said that you got. So it's important, obviously, to look obviously at your own data, but also to look at kind of what the ad platform says you're getting so that you can verify that those two things make the most sense. So spend $100-ish on ads, and what did we learn? Well, first of all, a targeted audience, even a pretty small audience, is relatively better than just taking out an ad. So I'm just going to share with you the basically the Reddit post that started it all. So the client sent this to me, and so what happened was he like had an idea for building this thing better than the original thing that it came with. So posted this on a very particular forum on Reddit for people who are building these kind of computers, and got a ton of comments, super clean, put me down for this one when the store is set up. Here's where I set up the store. And as you see, this from 2 months ago, placed my order, blah, blah, blah. So point being is that, yes, you can be on these big websites that have an enormous platform, but also being an active part of your community is not really something that you can substitute for. It's, being involved in something, because you're going to do best on the platforms that you're active on. So this client is active on Reddit and is using the Reddit forums that talk about PCs, not only to like talk about this computer setup that he's passionate about, but also to, connect with other people, and people are seeing his product and wanting to buy it. I will also say that the other thing is that traffic is probably going to drive sales later. So if you took out an ad set and not everyone immediately bought your thing, I do think there's a bit of a delayed effect between when you're considering a purchase and when you actually make it. And I found this survey. I'll link it when we post this to the blog and stuff. But basically, this looked at honestly about over 3,000 shoppers around that, and it looked at them purchasing typically items that cost $500 or more. So I'm guessing that this could vary depending on what industry you're in and how much your products cost. But depending on the category, between 40 and 137 days were spent researching the purchase. So even what I'm wondering is, are some of these people considering the purchase and going to buy it later? Because something that, is kind of unique to Etsy, I would say, in terms of being built in, is this like people have it in the cart. So let me just show you what I mean. So if you look at Etsy, it says over 20 people have this in the cart, 13 people have this in their cart, 10 people have this in their cart. So it creates kind of this sense of urgency. And I think sometimes people leave things in their Etsy carts to consider. I don't know about you, but I do this all the time on multiple e-commerce sites where I'm considering a purchase and I just leave the browser tab open on my phone. And then when I'm ready to make the purchase, that's when I actually finish it. So I will say that we've, like I said, the ad stopped running last night. So I'm guessing that maybe we'll get some residual purchases from them. And people did save the pin on Pinterest, for example, or they might have saved the link on Facebook. We can't tell some of those necessarily behaviors and how those are going to result in sales, but I'm saying that it's not nothing, I guess. But the main thing is that, no ad can outperform a great product, great service, and people who like you and talk about you online. And I'm guessing that spike in traffic, maybe, that I showed you with the Etsy store, it might've been Etsy showcasing this new store, which it does often on its homepage. It's like, oh, check out this new store. But it also might have been somebody talking great about it online and linking to it, because the traffic that came from that spike was from direct traffic. And Etsy is kind of limited in the stats it gives, so we can sort of think about what it could be without necessarily knowing exactly, at least in my opinion. But to me, ads amplify what you're doing. So if you're doing a good job, an ad can just get your good job in front of more people who don't necessarily know about you. And to me, like I said, ads are a tool in the toolbox. They are certainly not a substitute for running your business well and other good organic, aka unpaid marketing. So yeah, so that's my experiment with ads. Now that my account is done being in learning mode, I might try to include Google in my next experiment. So part 2 next week. Like I said, I'm going to do a service-based business in a very local, small place, because let's face it, we can't ship out manicures to California or anything. So I want to just find a business that fits that criteria and show how ads would work in that kind of scenario. Because any person, I can show you how to run ads for a t-shirt shop all day. The reality is a lot of us run different kinds of businesses, in that even though It's not necessarily the most straightforward use case that you've ever seen for an ad set. It doesn't mean you can't run ads on social media and actually be kind of successful at it. So I do hope you consider ads as a tool in your toolbox because, like I said, it's something that I think could at least get you sales potentially, but also get you some information, which is kind of what we learned about here. So my hypothesis going in was that Pinterest was going to be a better performer. And to be fair, Instagram and Facebook spent exactly $35, which is what I told them to. And Pinterest only spent 20. So, if I ran the ad set longer for it to be able to spend more money, because it had a smaller audience, so it couldn't show it to as many people, which is probably why it didn't get up to the $35 I had set in the budget. I do think that, Pinterest can be a really competitive platform, in particular around the holidays when there's a lot more ad competition on Facebook and Instagram in terms of bidding going on. So thanks so much for watching. Appreciate you watching. Let's stay tuned for part 2 next week. Like I said, like, subscribe, whatever, to be notified when that goes live. And I do want to throw up our social media on the screen here. If you want to book a direct time, we have a Calendly link. I don't know if that's I put that in the social media because that kind of counts for me. But we're on all these different social media channels and you can reach out there or you can leave a comment wherever you're watching this video, and we'd love to hear your questions, topic ideas, and anything we could clarify further. Again, have a great rest of your day and I will see you next week. Take care.